there are pyramids all over the place. But when you look at these other pyramids, they're all step pyramids. They're all made out of smaller stones. They're not nearly as big as the ones that you find in Egypt. And so it tells you that there was superior technology happening in Egypt, and around the world, these other cultures were trying to imitate that technology in those areas.
Is it possible most historians have completely underestimated the timeline? That more than 36,000 years before Common Era, there was a sophisticated culture in the Nile Delta region we now know as Egypt. Robert Bauval, the Egyptian-born author, has been providing intriguing insights on the Giza Plateau since the publication of his first book, The Orion Mystery, in 1994.
So there's an interesting correlation that Robert Bauval found between the placement of the pyramids on Giza and the belt stars of Orion. Now remember, Orion is actually a very important constellation to the Egyptians, to the ancient Egyptians, because he represented Osiris, which is the god of the afterworld and renewal. Now, one thing that Robert Bauval noticed is that if we were to look at the belt stars of Orion today, they don't quite match up exactly where the pyramids are. So he did some working and he found out that 10,500 BC, those stars almost exactly aligned with the pyramids, right where they needed to be. And this was the foundation of his Orion correlation theory. What's even more fascinating is he found out not only did those three belt stars of Orion match the location of those pyramids, but we're looking at heaven on earth, as above, so below, that the ancient Egyptians, as they were designing the Giza Plateau in the time of Zep Tepi, they wanted to match the heavenly bodies on the earthly bodies so that there was a direct correlation of the celestial beings to the earthly beings. Also, what Bauval noticed was that in the year 10,500, that the placement of the Sphinx on Giza also matched the location of Leo. And he went, that's very interesting, because 10,500 was also the age of Leo. And what the age of Leo is on the vernal equinox, the rising sun comes up in the constellation of Leo. And they wanted to denote that this was a very important time period.
Robert Bauval is one of the most important researchers ever, because he earned the great merit in opening a new way of investigation of the mysteries of Giza and of the pyramids. Because for the first time in the history, he introduced a model of analysis, that gave us the opportunity to understand and to study the Giza paradigm from a different point of view. Now, observing the astronomical map at 10,500 before Christ, I noted a key point. The Orion constellation is not perfectly aligned with the pyramids. If we assume that the Zep Tepi is an ancient time during which the gods lived on Earth, we must also say that on the Giza Plateau somewhere there is a monument that refers to the star Sirius, in connection with the goddess Isis.
The late John Anthony West, author of Serpent in the Sky, also introduced an alternative theory on the date of the construction of the monuments on the Giza Plateau. West was also a proponent of the water erosion theory around the base of the Sphinx that was introduced in the 1950s by French mystic Schwaller de Lubitsch.
So initially, when Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock were discussing the origin of the Sphinx, they proposed a date that seemed fairly reasonable, around 10,500 BC. But then along comes West, and he's looking at the conditions of the Earth at that time. Things were in upheaval. There's a lot of turmoil. There's some environmental disasters going on. When you look at the structures of the Giza Plateau, it looks like they had a very stable and solid civilization, that there was no upheaval or turmoil going on. So he proposed, when he looked even further back in time, that maybe the Sphinx was denoting a previous age of Leo, way back in the precessional cycle at 36,000 BC. And then as eons passed, we come across many different calamities hitting the Earth, especially the Younger Dryas period. And this is where we come into seeing the big water erosion all over the Sphinx and across the Giza Plateau, suggesting that these structures were already in place during the Younger Dryas and received a massive amount of erosion during that period.